Good evening. It is 6:30 on Wednesday, September 24th, and I am calling this meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board to order. My name is Chris LaValle, and I'm the chair of the board. Tonight we will be following the posted agenda. This meeting is both in person and via Zoom. If Zoom fails at any point in the meeting, we'll continue in person. This meeting is being televised live and recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on YouTube for later viewing. All right. First, we are going to start off the meeting with the Managed Growth Strategy kickoff meeting. And so if you could pull up the slides. So first, I want to welcome the folks who have been brought into the Managed Growth Strategy Task Force. Thank you for volunteering your time on this. We really appreciate it. We are gathering this task force together. Some of you may have seen the documentation already, but I quickly wanted to go through some of it this evening. So we have been tasked with the strategic plan to create a managed growth strategy. We need to balance the growth with the character, the environment, infrastructure needs, and finances of the town. We're being tasked with making this a data-driven analysis. We need to include input from board, staff, and stakeholders. A lot of this information has already been collected and compiled in different ways. We're not expecting this task force to redo all of that work, but to compile it all together, pull the information together, and use those data points. This task force is being asked to build on that strategic plan and existing data. We're estimating that this will be delivered by calendar year 2028, but once the task force meets and starts their work, I'm sure that timeline can get adjusted. We have also submitted grant funding or application for grant funding. We expect that to get back to us sometime in October. Once we do, we will be asking the task force to pull together a statement of work and to work on recommending a consultant to the planning board for approval. So roles and responsibilities, the task force needs to organize. We have selected the chairs, co-chairs, Mike Raisbeck and John Souza from the planning board. If a vice chair is needed, the task force should nominate that person, come up with a schedule. We really are looking also for the task force to define success criteria and focus areas. Recommend the consultant process, engage the staff, the boards and community to start pulling together the data, oversee the work of the consultant, and then deliver the final managed growth strategy. The planning board will provide direction and oversight. We will review and approve the milestones, approve the consultant contract, and coordinate with town leadership as well. We expect this to be a very close partnership between the task force and planning board so that we can deliver a really good product to the town. These are the timeline and milestones draft I put together just to help guide the task force with some initial thoughts on the timeline. These are not set in stone, but I do expect that the task force can form around these and adjust them as needed. So this managed growth strategy will fulfill objective 1 of the strategic plan. It, as I mentioned before, needs to focus on zoning, on housing, open space, economy, infrastructure, and finance. A pretty big area of focus. It will help align our zoning with growth and integrate any housing needs and planning that we have. The housing production plan was just recommended by the board, so that is also a really close tie-in to the managed growth strategy. We made some assumptions in that housing production plan that we do expect to adjust and edit as needed based on the findings of this growth strategy. We also need to assess the conditions of the infrastructure and water to facilitate the needs of our growth. We're asking for principles of inclusivity, integrity, financial responsibility, and sustainability in putting this growth strategy together. So this growth strategy will be a framework for, as I said, future zoning changes, capital planning from the town, land and conservation, housing development, infrastructure investment. All of these things are going to be tied to the recommendations that come out of this managed growth strategy. So we want to make sure that we're balancing the proactive with reactive, as well as making sure that these are data-driven decisions. As part of that, I wanted to ask John Souza to also provide a little bit of background on the town's financial considerations, because some growth will be needed. As we all would like to have no growth to keep this town a small town, the reality is that some growth will likely be needed. So we have to set the right expectations. And so I've asked John to present a little bit of the financial picture so that we can have the right framework going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. So if we can go to the next slide, just to put this in historical context for everyone. So Chelmsford, like many other municipalities, has seen increasing pressure on our town's operating budget in recent years. If you think back before 2020 and the pandemic era, the national inflation rate was much closer to 2% for many, many years. Certainly we're down from the peak of 7% in 2022, but to this day it still hovers around 3%, between 2.8%, 3%. So that may not sound like a big difference, but keep that in mind as we go forward. And the other economic conditions are the labor market continues to be tight, and that means upward pressure on wages. If we can go to the next slide. So for a town like Chelmsford, two major expenses, because we're a service organization, are personnel and health insurance premiums. Also, like many residents and businesses, the cost of electricity, heating, building materials, and other services has also increased. If we can go to the next slide. So this shows a pie chart of the town's budgeted revenues for the current fiscal year, just to show the key sources. And so one of the things when you look at this, you see that the purple area, over 76% of the town's revenue comes from property taxes. So if you think about that, that's over 3/4 of the town's revenue. State aid is the second largest at just about 13%. And then, local receipts, that type of things, available funds, certainly they're important, such as fees, motor vehicle excise tax, hotel room tax, meals tax. They account for about 8%, or just under 8% of total revenue. So certainly property taxes are one of the key parts to funding our town. So if we go to the next slide, we can go one more, please. So one key thing when you think of property taxes is that the annual increases are constrained by Proposition 2.5. And this is a state law that's been around since the early 1980s. And the goal was to protect taxpayers from significant increases year to year in property taxes. Historically, Chelmsford's always been able to absorb cost increases of 2.5% or less. But during periods of higher inflation, it becomes much more difficult to absorb these increases. If we go to the next slide. And of course, inflation's impact on the town's budget depends on the rate of inflation, but also how long does the cycle last? Are we talking a one-year event, a multi-year trend? Unfortunately, the cycle we're in right now is a multi-year trend. And multiple years of higher inflation eventually result in a structural budget deficit. And that's just a fancy term for when your recurring costs for personnel and services exceed your recurring revenues. If we delve in a little bit to how Proposition 2.5 works, it limits the increase in the tax levy to 2.5% plus new growth or new construction. New growth can include new construction, redevelopment to a property, additions to existing structures. The key thing to remember is voter approval is required to exceed these limitations, and that could be in the form of an operating budget override, however that last occurred in 1992, or more what we typically see is a debt exclusion to finance a specific capital project. The most recent one that was approved by voters was for the west and south fire stations. And so if we look at the numbers a little more here for the property tax levy, this just shows kind of in a spreadsheet form how does it work. So you have your base factor, your 2.5% increase. The new growth line is highlighted in yellow, and then there's a debt exclusion line. The easiest way I can explain that if you're a non-finance person is that is the amount of taxes that the town is allowed to raise to cover the bond payments for a project that's approved by voters. And so it's outside of the regular tax levy. So the money is collected, but it goes right out for bond payments for the project. So it doesn't give you any room to maneuver in your operating budget. And if you think about it, the 2.5% line there, the second one down, that's just a mathematical 2.5% times last year's historical figure. And so really the only line there that we can have an impact here at the local level is the new growth line. And that escalates only about 100,000 per year. And if you look at the line, I know the number's a little small, you can see that if you go all across, it's about a 1.5 to 1.7 million in new growth. For 26, we're budgeting 2 million, and the only reason, one of the key reasons for that is the new apartment complex at 255 Princeton Street. So that had a key impact on that. And then just looking at the budget funding limitations. So we saw in that previous slide that the new growth, or 2.5% allowed under state law plus the new growth, gave us $5.088 million for fiscal year 26. So if you look at it, you say, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. However, you'll see that when you're in a period of high inflation, that is spent very quickly. So here's three key budget drivers for the current fiscal year that we're in. Health insurance went up by nearly about just under 18%, or 2.9 million. Our Middlesex retirement assessment increased just over $1 million. And the school, for the Chelmsford Public Schools budget, increased 1.77 million. And that's significantly less than what they would typically need to cover their fixed costs. The one thing, when you think about this, is just those three items alone accounted for nearly all of the new growth and new property tax revenue that we have for the fiscal year. So that's what made this year so challenging. It doesn't, and that doesn't include any increases for municipal departments, rubbish disposal, and other fixed cost increases. So since fixed cost increases for fiscal year 26 exceeded all available new revenue, we had no choice. We had to make some tough decisions, and that resulted in the reduction of 5 full-time and 4 part-time municipal positions. And when I talked earlier about the school budget increasing 1.77 million, again, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not. It's 1.4 million less than what the schools received the prior fiscal year. And then this is just a historical slide to show that if you look at the breakout in the tax levy between residential valuation and commercial, CIP just means commercial, industrial, and personal property. You can see that back in 2018, it was about just over 18%. And by 2025, it has declined to 15%. So that tells us a couple of things, that the value of CIP property has declined over time, and residents have seen if we step back from the whole tax classification issue, which is often a hot topic in town, there's been a shift in values away from commercial and industrial property towards residential. Go to the next slide. This is just a list, a slide showing the 10 largest taxpayers for fiscal year 25. And if you look at the list, you'll see some familiar names, but the key point here is 4 of those large taxpayers are residential apartment buildings. And so that's something that we've been seeing more and more of in town. And the 255 Princeton Street development that I mentioned will likely be added to this list for fiscal year '26. And then we thought it would be helpful just to mention, how are some of the ways that commercial industrial development contributes to our town. Of course, it increases real estate tax revenue. In most cases, it increases personal property tax revenue, which is a tax that's levied on business fixtures and equipment. It usually increases fee revenue, for example, building permits. It can also, depending on the type of business, increase local option taxes, such as hotels, meals. And then, of course, they expand employment opportunities in town. And however, it's also important just to look at both sides of the equation, that certain businesses also result in increased costs, depending on the type of business. And then finally, just looking at, hopefully what you see when you study the numbers here is that some level of growth is key for the town to be able to continue affording the cost of providing essential services like public education and public safety over time. And also, growth in our tax base is essential for the long-term fiscal stability of the town. Why? If growth stagnates, it becomes more difficult to absorb these fixed cost increases, and the town is eventually forced to reduce services or personnel to balance the budget. We're a service organization, so personnel costs account for about 70% of our total budget. So one of our key challenges, as I see for the Managed Growth Task Force is, when we look at our policies, we want to try to develop policies that encourage some level of growth in the town's tax base. But at the same time, we have to look at the reason to me is it's called a managed growth strategy. You don't want just unrestricted growth whatsoever, because what will happen is if the level of growth is too high, then of course the town is going to have to make major investments in new infrastructure and new facilities. And these could be school buildings, could be renovation or construction for classroom space, roadways, intersection improvements, and also water, sewer. And water is, of course, supplied by 3 independent districts, and the town does handle the sewer service. And so, coming to a conclusion, investments in infrastructure and facilities, as we know, have significant costs, and they usually spread over multiple fiscal years. Public school building projects require several years of planning and construction, and are often done in partnership with the Mass School Building Authority. So the whole idea of this slide is these things take time. It's not something you can do in one fiscal year, so that's why the planning is so important. And then other considerations would just be the operating budget impact. So you have public education. Certainly, it affects student-teacher ratios, special education costs, public staffing, public safety staffing. We have to have adequate staff for an emergency response. And then public works. The more residents you have, it's a natural thing. You're going to have increased solid waste disposal costs. So then finally, wrapping up, this is just looking at a 5-year operating budget forecast. This is presented last April, and there'll be a new 5-year budget forecast will be presented next month at town meeting. But you can see, unfortunately, unless something changes, the budget forecast for the next few years, the deficits unfortunately get progressively worse. So it just shows the importance of trying to enhance revenues going forward. And whenever you do something like this, we can go to the next slide, everyone has different opinions on how to solve the problem. One of the things that's difficult to answer is what's preferred by a majority of the town. Do we want to try to develop strategies to promote managed growth in the tax base? Some residents might propose a Proposition 2.5 override. What are the consequences if we don't take action? It's definitely going to result in the loss of town and school services over multiple years. So that's just a quick look at our finances.
Thank you, John. So as you can see, the task force has a pretty big job ahead. We're really trying to figure out how the town balances progress and the growth it needs with the impacts that come along with the growth. So that's the charge of the task force, to figure out how the town can balance those needs and the growth in a sustainable, responsible way. So that is the task of the task force. I am going to ask that the members of the task force come up and introduce themselves briefly. So we do have a face to attach to the name. But before we do that, I will give you some time. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Well, I'd like to say thanks for that financial presentation. That's a good starter, an excellent starter.
I do have a question for John on the 5-year operating budget forecast. That's the next to the last slide.
Yes.
So that essentially the balance or the deficit is essentially what we're trying to see if we can make up with new growth. Is that
Yeah,
fair
the
to say?
5-year, it's basically to try to show everyone a trend of where we're going. So, because of recent trends with the costs escalating so much, it's unusual to see this, but you can see that the deficit's unfortunately increasing. If we can add to the base, if new growth actually becomes part of the future year's tax levy, so the more we can add, it would soften the impact of some of these
right?
deficits.
Okay, yeah, especially if it's earlier on, because
Right.
then your percentage growth after that's less. So is there a way of being able, or does it make sense to use that number to then look at how much we would want to look for commercial growth versus residential growth, especially given the question of which one potentially could be more of an impact? Your point being that one of the reasons you'd want to restrict growth is to prevent the overuse of or exceed the resources that we have right now. So is there a way to divide that out into at least some general goals as to what we would want in terms of commercial growth, like in terms of square footage of commercial growth that we would want as some sort of a plan, and versus residential, like so many additional residential units, or what kinds? Because I don't know if there's a difference in tax.
Yeah, I mean,
of
at
the
this stage, I think
residential.
it's something the committee is going to have, or the task force
Right.
is going to have to work on. I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to say that we have to try to hit a number with. It's more about developing policies to enhance, in my mind, to enhance some new growth that would be beneficial to the town. I think what I was trying to do with talk about the costs in the presentation is, if you pardon the analogy I'm going to draw for the gardeners out there or whatever, in my mind, just looking at it fiscally, it's almost like adding fertilizer to a plant. If you add a little bit, the plant will flourish and encourages a lot of growth in the plant. If you add too much, it has a detrimental effect. You can actually kill the plant. Because, it's you don't want to add so much growth that our services become, or our facilities become overburdened, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Also, I feel like these numbers are a guide for what, because a lot of people have the position they don't want growth, and these numbers are kind of an argument to why we need growth. But I don't think that these numbers are meant to drive the cart. I mean, I think that would
no.
be not a good strategy. I mean, we're not trying to raise revenue. That's not our charge as a board or as a task force. I think our charge is to try and make a plan to contextualize the various needs and make a strategy. So
Yeah, but I think you have to be careful. I do think, like, you can't just look at that, right? Like, you have to look at the numbers, because
But I
you
don't
can
think we can
drive
say we're going to
growth.
drive X number of units or
No.
X square feet of
No, but there's a
property.
balancing act that we have to be careful of, and, part of it's infrastructure. Like, do we have enough room for the schools to, like, expand? I know that's on our town meeting thing, we're not supposed to include schools, but again, like, when do we put in for another school? We're already at capacity with all of our schools, and they're at 23, 24 students for a teacher, right? Like, do we have room for another classroom? If we have a growth strategy of, this is how much we want to grow, well, is there a place for a new school to be built? Do we need a new school? Like, and when do we engage, and when do we start talking about that? Like, I think, like, to do it properly, you have to bring in all these pieces.
I'd also note, and I think, Joel, you hit on it, this is maybe your very first point, the relative increase in revenue and the relative increase in infrastructural needs is different between residential and industrial. And a big part of the balancing act here is likely to be looking at those two and saying, all right, we could stop all residential growth and do nothing but industrial, and that has one set of consequences. Or commercial. It has one set of consequences. Or we could go to the other way and it has another set of consequences. And balancing those two approaches is likely to be a big part of what this committee has to do.
And those two also impact each other.
Right, and they impact each other.
So growth in
to some
one
degree,
impacts
yeah.
growth in the other.
And then redevelopment too,
Yep.
right? Like a lot of our neighboring towns have seen a lot of, the ranch, like for instance, a small 1,000 square foot home torn down and a McMansion being built on the same
Yep.
lot.
Seeing it
Right,
everywhere.
you've got permanent fee, like you've got a whole different form of revenue, right? And that's not necessarily hitting your infrastructure, right? Like, you've got all these other things that come into play that we haven't had in Chelmsford. We really have had like the opposite. Like, we haven't seen a lot of that tear down and
Oh, yeah.
rebuilt as some of our neighboring towns have seen. But it's a lot.
Okay.
Well, my comments stem from the managed growth examples that Evan provided us, and in them they make a explicit number of units that they're saying they're shooting for as their goal. And so, if we have more explicit goals and we understand what those goals are and how we shape the decisions that we make that could achieve those goals, then we'll have a better sense of our actions influencing the outcomes that we want. But if it's more vague, then we could still say, well, I want to do this kind of thing, but maybe I'll try to do more of that thing over there. But we won't really have any sense of, am I actually achieving the goal I'm trying to do with this, or am I just still vaguely kind of shooting in the dark? So that's why I was driving to it. I think likely, if you put the numbers together, there's probably some sort of optimum at which you have a trade-off between the two, and potentially even within a particular category like residential. Because, for example, I think one of the things that we want to do from the planned production housing plan, some collection of those words together are the right one, that is smaller units that are more affordable, but that are not officially, affordable. In other words, that we do want to have places where people are able to come with young families and so forth and so on. And, but if we do that, essentially what we're doing is are we giving up potential tax revenue and potentially increasing the burdens on the resources, because we're having, smaller revenue generators that at the same time we're putting greater burdens on the resources because of families and stuff like that. So I think there's got to be some sort of reasonable optimum that we want to look at, and having some sense of what that is, I think would at least help me to guide, what kinds of things that we want to encourage in our zoning, so forth and so on, versus not. So that's really the gist of my point.
Yeah, and I think that's something, once we see what the task force comes with, we can see where it's heading and maybe narrow it down, broaden it, whatever we need to do.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right, so members of the task force, if you could come up, introduce yourselves. Not too much background, because we do have your backgrounds here, but it would be nice just to put names to faces. And if you do have any questions or comments for us, that would be great too. So I'd invite anyone who would be willing to come up and introduce. Sure. Come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Victoria Fox, newly elected town meeting representative for Precinct 7. And one of the things that I would really love to be able to do is have more of the citizens of Chelmsford realize how much work and how much money it takes to keep Chelmsford the way we want it and to still be progressive. So when there was the opportunity to be part of this task force, I says, oh my gosh, you know, this is what I need to learn. And I'm saying I may get less sleep.
Guarantee
But I'll meet
that.
a lot of new great people who are like-minded. And basically, this is why I'm here now. And so I'm saying, I'm here. Use me, folks. I mean, I'll accept it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate Rieger. I haven't lived here for very long, but I have lived at Kinloch, and now I live on Turnpike Road. I have a vast experience from the town that I came from, where I was the first selectman, and I served on every single board that there was. The only board I didn't serve on was the board you're on, because I knew how difficult this board is. So I wanted to learn more about the town. I figured this is a great way to do it. As I said in my letter, I understand how long and tedious these committees are, and I'm prepared for that, and I'm retired and I have a lot of time. So I
Excellent.
appreciate you allowing me to be on this committee, and now I know why there wasn't a big rush of people who wanted to be on it.
Thank you.
What was your name again?
Kate Rieger.
Nancy Arroway. 2020 master plan and a lot of years on the planning board and such. I'd like to thank John for putting that presentation together. I think that's a really spectacular starting point to launch off this committee. Not because we're trying to solve the economic issues for the town, but because solving or supporting the economic issues of the town is a big piece of what planning is about. I listened to you all commenting and jumping on pieces of it, and it's like, yeah, this reminds me of a lot of committees I've been on where we want to solve it immediately. I think the only thing that I'd like to say is we are looking for plans, for strategies that will support the ongoing functions in our town and to make life for all of our citizens as good or better going forward. And a big piece of that is the financial picture. But as we evaluate no growth, slow growth, pro-growth, the options, we're also looking at the impacts on the environment, the impacts on housing and society, how that affects the various demographics of our town, the society of our town, and the community of our town. And that's why I'm interested in this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb Taverna. I've been in Chelmsford since 1987. I've seen a lot of changes. I have served on the strategic plan, master plan implementation, housing advisory. I want to see how all the pieces fit together and help make them fit together. I grew up in a town that they didn't do the proper planning, and it almost killed the town. It took them years to come back, so that's part of why I'm interested in this.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chuck Mooney. I'll also answer to Charles or whatever you want to call me, it's fine. I am 39 years in Chelmsford, a long time. I grew up in Lexington, so I'm a Bostonian by heart, I guess. I served on the Strategic Plan Steering Committee. I see the value in strategic plans. I also saw that many boards, groups, et cetera, in Chelmsford have developed a number of really good plans that need to come together. And, you know, when I hear things, somehow the word growth scares people. I think of it more in terms of evolution. And things that don't evolve perish. So, you know, to me, zero growth it's not realistic. I think it's something that comes home to roost. So you want to call it managed growth, you want to call it evolution. I think it's important to bring these things together holistically and that the town all work together to move forward. And I'm also going to thank John for the presentation. You know, it's a pretty sobering picture, much like it was when I was starting out and bought houses, and a few of you as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. Aaron Cunningham. For those that don't know, I'm on the select board, and I was also part of the committee that this resulted out of. So I may or may not have had a hand in getting this to the planning board. But I will say, I really am looking forward to this coming to fruition. And I think the way Chris framed it tonight, I think we were challenged. And as Chris knows, we were challenged at getting this to them. And there were a lot of questions. And I think what got boiled down tonight as our pathway is, I couldn't have articulated that way, but that's where I was hoping this would go. And then John just really emphasized that. Again, I don't think we're looking to fill that gap, but we need to start adding that fertilizer and getting a little bit of growth there so that gap closes at the end. And we'll always continue to refresh to try to close that gap. So I'm thankful for the select board at having me be the representative member. I definitely look forward to working with this crew and some of my new and old friends on doing this. So thanks for putting this together tonight.
Thank you.
Ravi?
Yep.
Ravi's online.
Ravi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. I'm trying to see if I can start my video. Sorry, 1 second. There you go. Sorry, hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. I had to go to India for a family emergency. And yeah, this is the first time I will be in any committee for the town. My main purpose was to just get involved, learn from obviously the lot more experienced people that are there in this group and contribute. I work for Citizens Bank on their IT side, and I'm also involved in some real estate ventures of my own. And I thought the two things and my interest in the town and its growth, and more importantly managed growth, would help me drive towards contributing towards this committee. Again, more importantly, I'm here to learn a lot from all of you guys and hopefully set the stage for more such involvement with the town moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you for waking up so early to join us.
No worries, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else? Okay. Oh.
You get two more.
Hi, I'm Karen Walton. I've been a resident since 2001. I was a teacher in Lowell for 30 years and also an adjunct at the University of Fitchburg. I now serve as primary manager for the Thanksgiving pollinator garden and native plant site. I am a new town meeting member and also co-chair of the Democratic Town Meeting. I'm deeply committed to establishing ecological green spaces in Chelmsford, particularly bee pollinator gardens, and building gardens in the spaces, the open spaces in Chelmsford, which is very easy, native gardens. And I look forward to working in that capacity because I'm a master gardener and I've gone to green school and I have a lot of background in gardening and landscape. So putting that in place in Chelmsford is what I'm committed to do. I think if there's room for it in this committee. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Peter Spahn, environmental and civil engineer, been in town over 40 years. I've had the opportunity the last 3 years to get involved in a whole bunch of different committees. That's given me a very good understanding of how the town approaches one of the big limits to growth, which is our natural space, which includes things like drinking water and sewers, but also open space and flooding and whatnot. My personal philosophy is the country has doubled the population as when I was a kid, so obviously we're going to grow. And the question is how, and I believe that we can do that in a smart and sustainable way that doesn't muck up the things I care about, which tend to be the environmental factors that impact things like our health. And don't want to go down that road, but you're going to talk about PFAS next, so you know what I'm referring to. I am the rep from the Concom, and I just want to remind everybody the Conservation Commission has a charter in town bylaws and the State Wetland Protection Act to support a whole bunch of things that affect growth. Water pollution, groundwater and drinking water quality, habitat, flood mitigation, and a host of other things in our town bylaw, but those are all impacted by how you do growth. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone and representing the Conservation Commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And one last person, but not least.
Hi, my name is Badri Upepan, for those who don't know me yet. Short and simple, 20 years in town, first volunteer green coordinator of town of Chelmsford, now CES, Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee Chair, troublemaker to Strategic Planning Committee that established this task force in some ways, and obviously the lobbyist who came in and convinced Joel to vote for the establishment and planning board to take the lead, which he changed the mind. So hey, got my ability to influence people. John, the budget of 2050 is $365 million, roughly. So take it from me. Let's take a bet how close I am to this. This is the number that I project. 320 to 335, but if the inflation stacks up, $350 million.
Hopefully I'll be there to see it.
I certainly hope that you are there, but that's a reality in my world, which is when I retire and live in town for about 10 years, or give or take, that's what I see as the town budget. Today it's $162 million, give or take chump change. So when somebody asks the question, what is the revenue production plan and everything else, I want to make sure that in the committee, in the task force, my voice will be to say, it can't be a 5-year view. This is a very long-term view. This is managing growth is a philosophy, it's a strategy, it's an integrated perspective of how people live. This is in the context of the strategic plan and vision statement that says that we will acknowledge history, we will live a welcoming community, a learning community, a healthy community. So there are multiple facets. This is not just in one facet of economic growth. We may be a poor community, but we may be a very happy community. That's the extreme one level, right? And growth means multivectorial, it's not revenue alone, so to speak. And a lot of different points have been brought up. As we industrialize or as we continue the pathway, I think the core principle, if not, at least for myself, that I will be looking at, and hopefully we can all leave this for the future, is to be a good ancestor. So in 25 years, when somebody looks back and said, hey, this task force, this planning board, this select board committee, they all looked it up and set us up 25, 50 years for successful, and they were a good ancestor to us all. That would be the motivation that I would want us all to think about. Other communities have their own challenges, but if Chelmsford can be an island, an oasis of hope in the kinds of divisions of what we want, and that's the spirit we should be embodying in it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So thank you all, members of the task force, for, again, volunteering your time and energy on this. John and Mike will be reaching out to you soon to start scheduling the first task force meeting. So thank you all. All right. Moving on to our next agenda item, the Chelmsford Water District Crooked Spring Water Treatment Plant PFAS upgrades, requesting a waiver from the full site plan review process.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve DeFrancesco. I'm with the consulting firm of AECom, engineering consulting firm. We're located right here on in Chelmsford at 250 Apollo Drive, and representing the Chelmsford Water District for the design of their PFAS treatment facilities. So, as you said, we're seeking a waiver from full site plan review. I'd like to give you a little bit of overview about the project and why we think it applies for that. I need my glasses to read. I put these slides together, but so in 2021, the Crooked Springs water treatment plant, and there's two major water treatment plants that the Chelmsford Water District has in Chelmsford. One is up at Crooked Springs, and which is near the high school, and the other one is down at Riverneck. The Crooked Springs plant they tested their water for PFAS, and they exceeded the state limit for PFAS, and the state put them under a consent order to build treatment to treat the PFAS. So this project is part of that, and it really contains two different elements. One of them is just a PFAS building, and that's a 6,250 square foot masonry building that's going to contain the granular activated carbon vessels that the water will filter through. And the next element is a recycle basin, 4,300 square feet. It's about 12 feet deep, concrete basin that'll be underground that will take, these filters have to be backwashed periodically, say about every month. So when you backwash them, we will put the spent backwash water into this basin and then slowly recycle it back to the plant. Unfortunately, I didn't bring a laser point. Did you have one, Evan? Or okay. So this is the site plan of the existing plant. So right up there now, there's a plant that removes iron and manganese from the water. That's this pretty much the square structure that you see right in the middle of the plant, and there's access roads right there. That go all around. So the new treatment facility is going to be off to the right, and the spent backwash water concrete basin is going to be the structure that you see over to the left, just to give you some orientation there.
Point that out on the screen.
Can I point it out? Sure. This is going to be the treatment facility here. This is the spent backwash water. This is a below ground. It comes up above ground about a foot of concrete. So when you backwash the filters here, it's going to go down to this basin here and then be recycled back to the plant and reuse the water. So we took this from your GIS map, and you can see there's a red dash line that goes all the way. That's the red dash line goes around the perimeter of the Chelmsford Water District property up at Crooked Springs. And we just wanted to show here where the structures were relative to the property lines and the distance. So the closest distance to a property line is approximately, it's almost 300 feet. And that would be from the treatment facility over to the right side. The other measurements, if you can read them, those are 500 to 600 feet. So it's within the existing property, existing fenced-in area. This is just a site plan, or excuse me, a floor plan of the treatment plant. We just wanted to show there really is no frills to this building. It's building just large enough to contain the granular activated carbon filters. Those are represented by all the circles that are there. Off to the left is the backwash pumps, and off to the right is an electrical room to service the pumps. We have an HVAC, a mechanical room, and just a storage room. And that is a section cut through the building, so you can see why the height of the building is driven by the height of these granular activated carbon vessels. So these are some of the characteristics and why we think this project is deserving of a waiver. There's no change in use. There's an existing water treatment facility at the site, and we're going to continue with that. The structures are not close to any property lines. We're in the existing fence line of the facility. We're not clearing any trees. We're not adding any new treatment chemicals. We're not adding any access roads. We're not adding any traffic. There'll be no additional staff at the facility. There'll be no additional parking or parking spaces. Runoff from the two structures will be handled by underground infiltration trenches adjacent to the structures. There'll be no additional site lighting. We're disturbing under an acre. The building is less than the 35-foot limit. We're 1.5 feet below that. We have had communications with the Conservation Commission. We're not impacting any wetland resource areas. We're not within any buffers. We're not within any floodplains. We've spoken to the fire department about the project. Sprinkler systems are not required, and the existing site access is acceptable. So those are all the characteristics, and we're asking for a waiver for the full site plan review.
Excuse me, may I ask a question? What are the major?
Hold on.
It's not a public hearing, it's an administrative review. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just wondering what the changes are to this compared to.
Unfortunately, you're not allowed to ask questions in the administrative reviews. Sorry. Are there any questions from the planning board?
One very small one. I mean, what you're asking for makes very good sense to me, but I'm just kind of curious how this mechanism works. You filter to the carbon,
Yes.
then you backwash. Now all your PFAS winds up in a tank.
Nope. All the PFAS remains it's absorbed by the granular activated carbon.
Okay. So the backwashing does not remove it and put
No.
it in a separate tank.
Sometimes there may be a
takes
little
out
iron
everything.
coming through
Okay,
that'll
understood.
plug
That's
up
what I wanted to know.
the top. Right.
Yep.
So the carbon is changed out. We don't exactly know. We've done some testing. We think typically what you do is you want to do maybe half the vessels every year. So a truck shows up with new carbon, you empty the old carbon in the truck, you add new carbon, and then
Okay, so
away
it's
the
like a
treatment.
once-a-year thing.
We don't know. Maybe we're hoping it's longer than that.
Yeah.
And it depends on what the PFAS levels are. But they'll be monitored on a monthly
Understood.
basis.
All right, I'm covered.
Joel?
Are you in an aquifer area?
Yes, we have wells all around.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
So you don't need to apply for an aquifer permit, protection permit?
I mean, the aquifer is controlled by the Chelmsford Water District. It's their wells. So I'm not sure what's required for the aquifer permit.
Referring to zoning?
Yeah.
Yes, this project would normally trigger a site plan review.
Right.
For any building over 500 square feet. It would also trigger the lot coverage under aquifer.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. Yeah. Okay, but we're not taking that up today.
So my understanding of the request is in its entirety, is what I think they were intending on requesting.
Okay, because
Is a waiver from submitting for approval from the planning board for site plan and the special permit, as I understand it.
okay, because the site plan I can see the aquifer permit. I'm not. I would want to see a stormwater analysis because I think it's a standard we should apply to everybody, including the water district. That's all.
John?
No questions at this time.
Anita?
Just curious as to why this area was selected for the new building. Can you just go back on the slide? Like that corner versus maybe a little bit further off of the street?
Can you go up one more slide to there? It was a flat area that was, because the water is going to go through the existing plant, so we don't want it
Too far.
too far from the existing plant. And it's right next to a road, so we didn't have to build any more road or any more impervious surfaces. The water will go through the existing plant, run through the new plant, on the line that used to go out to the community. It now goes through the filters and then goes out to the community. So it also is right there where the water line leaves the site.
And this is for Chelmsford Water,
Chelmsford Water District,
not
correct.
North Chelmsford and not East Chelmsford.
No.
What are and I'm sure you probably don't know this, but like, have we looked at the PFAS at those?
No.
Okay.
Deirdre?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I agree with Joel in the sense that I would like to see a stormwater analysis in this area. And also, I think it should come back for allowing public input to be able to talk to it. This is something that's affecting people.
I also agree with Joel on the special permit. I am curious about the site plan waiver request, because it looks like you've done almost everything that you would need to do for the site plan review, including come before us for this waiver. So I don't think it would have been a whole lot more work to actually go forward with the site plan review, because you've got all the drawings, you've already contacted the departments that are most critical. I think from a legal perspective, protecting both you and the town, especially with around PFAS, my recommendation would be to move forward with the process of the site plan and the special permit, and get the official letters from the departments that there are no concerns, because I think if something goes wrong in the future, that could be a pretty big liability for both the town and for the water district. So my recommendation would be to go through the process. Based on what I'm seeing, I don't think it would be a long process. I can't imagine it would be any more than one meeting. Pretty simple project. No complications, no major issues. So I would like to see it go with the site plan review and special permit with departmental letters. And I don't think it would go more than one meeting. Any other questions or comments? At this point, I would take a motion.
So it's a motion to deny. What was the
I don't know if you need to formally take any motion.
Okay.
If you want to, you can. We'll just add some more context to this. They obviously provided a bit more context. When I met with them, I had indicated to the district that I don't have the administrative authority. We have to go to the board. As a plan B, we did work with the district to already submit the legal ads. So this is scheduled to open on October 8th. Legal ads have gone in. They ran last week. They'll run this week. A butter notification will also go out. And that was, for obvious reasons, in the event that the board wanted the district to apply.
Is the legal ad for the site plan review and also the aquifer permit?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's covered. Because I've got to say, I'm not particularly concerned about the site plan, but I completely agree with you on the special permit.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't expect there to be any questions or concerns.
I mean, we've basically seen the presentation.
Yeah, and I think that it's just a matter of making sure that we have the letters. I mean, I trust that the departments didn't have any comments, but it would be nice to have those official letters in the file, just as a protection. All right, so no motion, but I'm seeing a lot of nodding that people are in favor of not granting the waiver and then having them come back for the special permit and the site plan on the 8th. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for hearing us.
All right, before we go to the next administrative review, since we do have a number of public hearings that are going to be continued, I want to make sure we take care of those sooner rather than later.
Would you like some motions?
Yes, please.
Okay. On 152 Stedman Street, I move that this hearing be continued to October 8th.
Actually, we should push that out to October 22nd.
22nd? Okay.
Because October 8th will be pretty crowded,
Okay,
and
fine.
Not gonna be ready.
I don't think they're going to
Yeah,
be
I
ready.
suspect they may not be ready.
Concom has them going towards the later part of October as well. So.
Okay, well then make that the 22nd.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mike, second by Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
All right. I would then move that we continue the public hearing on 191 to 195 River Neck Road to, you want that one on the 8th?
Yep.
To October 8th.
I'll second.
Motion by Mike, second by Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
And we agreed they would be first on the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah. And number 3, you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, I move that the hearing for 133 Princeton Street be continued. Again, you want this on the 8th? October 8th it is.
Do we want it on the 22nd? Because on that one, I think we're more wanting to hear how this came about. And I think we might have a little more time for that on the 26th than on the 8th. I don't know. If people want to do it on the 8th, that's fine, but our 8th is looking.
I will adjust my motion accordingly. You just tell
Because
me
we
which
also
one
have
you want.
Chelmsford Street on the 8th. So I think it's a good idea to move this to the 22nd.
Chelmsford Street, meaning the Chelmsford Street Mall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be long.
And I think they both come out with traffic reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right, make that the 22nd.
I'll
Motion
second
by
that.
Mike, second by Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so those 3 public hearings are continued to those dates. Moving on to 242 Billerica Road. Review and endorse certificate of decision. So,
At this point, I think the hearing's been closed.
yep.
Yes.
You have a draft decision in front of you. I provided hard copies, slightly different than what's on the agenda. Attorney Duchesne has reviewed it on behalf of the applicant. His comments are redlined. Chris has provided the findings determinations, so those numbers have been incorporated on page 3 of 6. And Chris has also refined several special conditions.
Was there something on the special conditions about a path being maintained? for
Between the parking.
Between the
Yeah,
par- yeah.
between the parking.
I think the
Not specifically, but I expected that to be per special condition number 2. What was discussed was that, actually, this special condition number 1B, the MOU.
Yeah.
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 But if you want, we can specifically indicate that the MOU shall provide provisions for maintenance.
Maintenance of the walkway between the
Yep.
two properties. I
Yeah.
thought we said that was a.
Yep. What is that?
And the applicant is okay with the red lines and the
Yes, we've reviewed it. In fact, some of the red lines are mine. I just, filling in info, but my client's comfortable with all the conditions and everything, and wanted to thank you for your time.
All right, so I will take a motion.
Now, we have already approved this.
We've already approved it.
Okay,
It's
so
essentially
I
ratifying.
move that we ratify the certificate of decision as presented with the additional comment concerning maintenance of the path.
Motion by Mike,
I'll second. Oh, second.
second by Deirdre. She got it first. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
All right, next up on the agenda, 12 Kidder Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Belansky. My name's Pete Nicosia. I'm the attorney for the applicant, property owner Luke Real Estate Corp. I know the majority of you are new members on this board and got to avoid the pleasure of the proceedings of the underlying grant of this special permit for an industrial building development that took place some time ago. The board had originally granted a special permit back in September of 2016. In the midst of it, there was a private land rights dispute, which sort of was pervasive throughout the proceedings, which ultimately degenerated into a private land rights litigation in Middlesex Superior Court between my client and an abutter, Joseph Hyder, who's represented by attorney Doug Hausler, who's here today. And as a result of, how the site plan was being laid out and that boundary dispute issue that was taking place at the time, I think the board took comfort in installing a condition into the special permit decision, condition number 10, about moving this stone boundary wall which was on the property at the time. And it was really the board being cognizant of the fact that it was an unsettled issue between the private parties. And obviously, the board is not going to be the arbiter of private land rights disputes, but felt that that condition should be put in place just to protect the abutter. Since that time, many years later, the parties involved in that private land rights dispute resolved their disputes. And there was a settlement agreement. The case has been disposed of. And the settlement agreement calls for various obligations of the respective parties with respect to this common boundary. And there was some, site disturbance and regrading and moving of the wall and surveying work that has taken place. So the parties have begun that. But we're to a point now where we're getting ready to move this wall, and this condition actually poses an impediment to the parties completing their settlement agreement. So before we embark on the rest of the work, we knew we had to come back here and ask for special dispensation to lift that condition. And knowing that it was motivated by the abutter, as part of the settlement agreement, Attorney Hausler provided a letter of consent for the affected party to agree to the removal of that condition, so long as obviously the parties comply with what their respective work requirements are on the project itself. And I've further committed to Attorney Hausler tonight that we're going to have a site meeting before any further work takes place to move the wall, to eliminate any confusion over who has what remaining work and where things are, and making sure that the parties are sticking to the literal terms of the settlement agreement. So I've committed to that site meeting before we actually move the wall. And but again, we can't proceed any further until we get relief from this board, and I suspect that Attorney Hausler is in support of that path, and I'm here to request that minor modification, removing condition number 10 from the original special permit decision.
Thank you, and I think Evan ran into the same thing I did when I was reviewing this. I looked at special condition 10, and it looked like it referenced a spill kit.
Oh, I may be referencing a different number then. So
I think it's fact 10.
Fact 10, excuse me.
So I wanted to make sure we had that cleared up before we vote on it.
Yes, I agree. I also had the pleasure of not being involved in the underlying special permit grant or the litigation itself. I have been brought in to triage issues since then. So thank you for that clarification.
Does somebody have a copy in front of them of exactly what that provision is, so I can understand what we're up to here?
I have it.
Is it the recorded decision 2016? Is that
Yep.
what we're looking at?
Yes.
Fact 10, right there. No stone walls will be removed.
Yes.
Okay, got it. removed or moved. Could we hear from Attorney
Yes.
Hausler?
Because it was an administrative matter, I didn't think I was allowed.
I don't have a problem with him speaking, so.
Thank you. Attorney Nicosia laid out exactly what we had discussed. I trust him implicitly. He's a man of his word. My client will look forward to working with his client to resolve any other open issues. This is a first procedural step. As long as no other work is being done until we're locked down, we're okay with it. And I want to thank the board for listening to this. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
That was a little too
Evan?
easy.
That was much easier than I anticipated.
Well, it's because you've witnessed Doug and I go at it on this issue before in this room, so.
The only, I guess, procedural question I have is, it sounds like the two attorneys are confident that the site meeting between the applicant and the abutter will be successful. But history has shown that really hasn't been the case. So I guess my question is, what happens if it's not successful?
Well, that's not an issue for this board because there is a settlement agreement which has been submitted to the court and approved by a Superior Court judge, which specifically outlines the field work obligations of the parties, the engineering obligations of the parties. It is unambiguous. It deals with where things are being moved, grading levels. Any dispute over the scope of the performance of that settlement agreement is resolved by the Superior Court and not an issue for this board. The only thing that's in front of this board right now is just that municipal condition to allow us to look to perform the settlement agreement. So Mr. Belansky's concerns can be resolved knowing that any subsequent disputes are resolved by a Superior Court judge and not by this board.
Is it likely that there'll be other conditions or other issues that we would need to reverse as a result of this?
None, to my knowledge.
I can't imagine it.
Okay.
I just, because I don't know this, is there a white PVC fence that's still further on?
Yes.
Is that staying there?
So there was a temporary fence that the board had approved to allow to be constructed. The language in the settlement agreement spells out fencing and boundary lines and all of those things. So all of those issues are going to be addressed. I can't speak specifically to give you the great details of the work, but it's spelled out in the settlement agreement. Again, we're unable to perform our settlement agreement unless you approve this.
Yep.
So are they not able, like, they don't have to do another site plan because the fence was temporary?
Nope.
Is that way?
Yep.
So the expectation per the board's approved plans was originally that the walls removed. In exchange, there's a white stockade fence installed, 2 rows of arborvitae, and then the detention basin. So that's what I'll be looking for as part of final inspections. And hopefully that's what the settlement agreement contemplates.
Whatever the decision prescribes.
Okay.
We have the decision. If we're going to vary from the decision, we will have to come back here for a further modification. If we're going to vary, or there's any dispute over the Superior Court settlement agreement, the other lawyers will be back in front of a judge to address those issues. I'm not envisioning any of that. I think, the matter has progressed so much under the settlement agreement to this point, where now we're at that critical phase where we are approaching wall removal. So we said, well, before we put a shovel in the dirt, we have to go back here and get this approval first.
Which I appreciate, by the way.
Yeah.
Huh? Before is always
Before
better.
is better.
Though there are some people in this town that come after.
Better to ask for forgiveness than for
Right,
permission.
right, that come after that we'll be looking at in a couple of weeks, couple of meetings down the road.
All right.
Are you ready for a motion?
I want to say thank you.
I'm sure I'll be back with an after-the-fact request on something else.
Almost guaranteed.
All right, any other questions? All right, I will entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve this minor modification to this certificate of decision for 12 Kidder Road. Modification being to strike fact 10, no stone walls be removed from the decision.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Deirdre, second by Anita. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, thank you.
Good luck.
That was, Anita, you were on that? I think Deirdre was on that, because I remember you asking about that. I'm sure you were.
I've been on it.
On the,
When this was first before us.
No,
Not
they
first.
came to us
No.
with complaints.
No, not first, but the
modification.
modification with the
Minor
fence.
There were multiple modifications.
Is that- No, yeah, but I remember Deirdre asking questions about it, because I wasn't on the board, but I was in the audience. So I just watched.
All
the whole
right. 345 North Road, overlay.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
You didn't go anywhere.
Welcome back. It's nice to see you again.
For the record, Pete Nicosia, the attorney for the property owner and the applicant. Property owner is a realty trust, but the principal behind it is Vinod Patel. He may very well be on Zoom. No.
Ron Bork.
Ron Bork, the architect, is on Zoom, so he's available. Jesse Johnson from Weston Sampson is the chief engineer on the project. He's here available as well. Mr. Patel was traveling. He was going to try to get on. I think he's on his way to India. So there may be some logistic issues there. So anyways, we're in front of you tonight on a request for, determination as to whether this project fits into the COD, is what I call it, I guess, the Community Enhancement Investment Overlay District projects. This is 345 North Road. It's a strip mall, which I'm sure you've all driven by 1,000 times in your lifetime, as I have. And it's historically been commercial with mom and pop shops. There's a daycare there. There's been a mortgage lender, a hairdresser, and everything in between. So, as we've seen in a lot of our small communities, I'm based out of Tingsboro, but Tingsboro's not wholly dissimilar to Chelmsford and some of the surrounding towns where we have been typically bedroom communities with a sprinkling of these strip malls all throughout as part of our economic development. Well, eventually over time these things become depressed. And, obviously the economy has been somewhat turbulent over the last several years. And, my client wants to take advantage of the overlay district and revitalize the parcel. And I think the proposed revitalization is consistent with your zoning planning objectives here in town. And basically what they're proposing to do is build within the existing footprint. We're not doing any site alterations. We're not doing I don't think we're doing any height alterations at all. We're building within the existing structure, but sort of retrofitting it for a combined commercial residential use. So the daycare is staying, and what we're looking to do is put in a series of 2 and 1 bedroom apartments with 6 units on the first floor and another 6 units on the second floor. So what I've provided to you is sort of a summary narrative of what, generally speaking, high level, this project is about. So you have that. You have an existing condition site plan, which Weston Sampson had provided with a topographical plan. And then you have some structural floor plans and elevations from Ron Bork, the architect, to show, how it's intended to be laid out. Now, we worked a lot with Mr. Belansky before we thought about coming forward with this. He rightly so directed us to water and sewer first, because of the past moratorium and capacity issues, but we've passed muster with them. They've done all the calculations, and we have a clean bill of health for them for this project to move forward. So we went on from there, because under your CEIOD bylaw, it required us to move it to a departmental review next. So we had a large-scale departmental meeting with all your department heads. I think the project was received pretty favorably there from all the department heads. I didn't hear anything negative. I mean, everybody had constructive input. And I think, for any type of project like this, I think it's great for the department heads to get their fingerprints on it before we, start pushing plans forward. And so I felt that meeting was positive and successful, such that we could at least move it to the next phase, which is this appearance in front of your board for your input and your determination as to whether it fits into the bylaw. So we think it fits into the adaptive reuse project category under the zoning code. We think it's appropriate for the site. You know, obviously Massachusetts as a whole and lots of these communities have been trying to get creative on creating new housing stock, especially affordable housing stock. This obviously would be subject to your inclusionary zoning bylaw, so we're aware of that. You know, but there's not a lot of this type of stock in inventory in the area. You know, and obviously the state has just redone the accessory use dwelling bylaw, which towns are grappling with. A lot of communities have adopted the MBTA overlay district, trying to stimulate growth. Well, here's a perfect example of now just relying upon the good zoning planning for this town and trying to take advantage of one of these overlay districts and having local control over a mixed-use project that gives you the housing stock and continues to have some type of commercial element to it. So because there's no site disturbance, I did confirm with the conservation director again before coming here, because we offered to appear in front of them, you know, because it's technically in an aquifer district, but he indicated that no appearance was necessary, at least at this stage. And again, we're staying within the same footprint, no site alterations, and we think it's a good fit for the site. So we're here to solicit your input on the project under the criteria of the bylaw, and I have the smart people here with me to answer questions that I can't answer, and happy to hear your questions and comments.
Thank you. Evan, do you have anything to add?
You know, just indicate that this would trigger the inclusionary, which was mentioned. As you recall, our inclusionary is designed where the affordable units are at 50% AMI, which means per 40B regulations, all 12 units would count towards our SHI. This is very similar to 3 Meeting House. So that's really the biggest benefit the town can get in approving projects like this, converting non-residential space into residential space. As part of the departmental meeting, my focus with the applicant was to encourage them to focus their energies on the streetscape, the public realm, meaning updating the sidewalk as necessary. It really is limited opportunity to add landscaping within the parking field. I think as it is, they're deficient by a couple spaces. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Saritha, any questions?
Not yet. I might come back.
Mercy.
So, what's going above the daycare in this plan?
Residential
It
units
just
are
says
above the daycare.
shelf space, there's nothing like,
I don't know if that's, storage or maybe some utility connections. Not for certain. Ron, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Can you speak?
Yeah,
speak to that question?
there is some utility rooms up there. Essentially, it's going to be storage at this point.
okay. And is this going to have like a hallway up there for the units on the second floor to get to their units? How is this?
That's correct. So if you see the boxes with the X in them, those will be stairwells.
Okay.
And they'll be short hallways.
Okay.
So there'll be multiple entry points on the first floor. And really, this is just diagrammatic as a test fit. There's quite a large amount of ceiling space up there because it is a high gable because of the depth of the building. So it's pretty much all developable. As you see the footprint, we don't have a lot of space that's taken up by the roof pitching.
Okay.
Deirdre?
Could you just, I mean, I guess it's maybe a little ahead of ourselves, but I'm just wondering, it seems intuitively that the parking would be a bigger issue than it sounds like Evan is indicating that it is.
So we're close on spaces, and I'll let Jesse speak to this in a moment, but there's also different peak usage hours too. You know, the
Sure.
daycare is gonna be closed when the residents are home.
Right, true.
You know, so that sort of queuing is a factor as well, but I'll let Jesse speak to the parking counts.
Good evening. For the record, Jesse Johnson, Weston and Sampson. I'm the civil engineer for record on this. So we did look at the parking, and if you go by just your requirements, all the things are calculated based off of the usage and the square footage. It does fall short, but then you do have the provision to calculate at 80% because of the overlay, and it then does fit within that requirement. So we have 39 provided, and that calculation comes out to 37.8. But I did notice, and I don't know how old these ratios were determined, but the calculations are a little unique in how they want one visitor spot for every 3 units, which is pretty robust for a parking spot, I think, for 4 visitor spots for 12 units. And then even more so on the daycare, it's 1 for every employee. And then with the students, that was generating, I think, a requirement of 10 parking stalls for 38 students. So I thought that was probably not really practical or what's actually happening there. And then also the transition of who's going to be using it during the day, and then that turnover. So I don't feel parking would be an issue at all.
I mean, you have to remember too, we're going from, you know, a far more intense usage of retail businesses with traffic in and out all day to this. So it's certainly a less intense use. On the site. But he's right, you know, unless we have some students that have stayed back for a few years and have driver's licenses, I don't know that we'll be using those spaces, so.
Anita?
I mean, the only question because I've used the businesses in there, just, like, you're not gonna increase the height of the structure? You think you have enough room?
Yes.
Trying to visualize it when I was
Yeah,
in there.
it's, you know, I did too, and then I made the mistake of going on the site visit to go up and look into that
Yeah.
space. The space is there. It's somewhat deceiving.
Okay.
Are there going to be dormers? Because there's no windows in the
Upstairs.
pitch.
Ron, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, there will be dormers. There'll be a shed dormer on the rear of the building, so you wouldn't see it, as well as maybe reconfiguring some of the dormers that are in the front to allow some windows. For example, we could bridge across 2 of those dormers to create a window wall.
Okay.
But we will limit the construction to the minimal.
John?
Yeah, I think as a first glance, it makes sense to me as a good reuse. You know, given the difficulty trying to attract commercial clients in there. The other thing that's a plus for me, as I see, is it's on a state highway, and so you know, I don't see as opposed to impacting if this was in closer to a residential neighborhood.
And that's one of the factors under the bylaw to be considered, so.
That's all.
Okay. Joel? Mike?
Well, it certainly falls within the ceiling. No question there, and I think a lot of the other questions that we're bringing up are really questions for the next step,
Right.
not for this.
Yes.
So in terms of COA approval, I'm certainly for it.
Evan, it doesn't technically matter which category of reuse, does it? I mean, it doesn't
as
trigger
part-
any different.
As part of your applicability, past boards have articulated which one it fits into. It's not critical.
But there are no different
There's no different
performance
standards.
Okay.
No. It's more as the bylaws evolved and as you can, you know, you draw the line from managed growth strategy and some of the other strategies the board's been talking about, you can reflect on some of those COA types and it begins to, get slotted in a logical manner.
Okay. And it looks like since this would be more than 8 units, it would require a special permit. Okay.
Yeah, I'll work with the applicant on the actual legal ad and what specific permits are necessary.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I think this is a really, really interesting, nice project. I think it meets a lot of the needs of the area, and I think it's a great reuse of the building.
Yeah. Well, I will move that we grant CO'd approval for 345 North Road.
For applicability.
Or, yeah, applicability.
Motion by Mike,
I'll second.
second by Deirdre. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Sure, I'll see you soon.
Next up, 91 Tingsboro Road. SEAD applicability as well.
Good evening. Attorney Catherine Flood, Flood Law Office, 549 Rogers Street, Lowell. Here on behalf of Jerry and Tina Daly, trustees of Mattie K Realty Trust, owners of property located at 91 Tingsboro Road. We are here tonight to see the applicability of the project in the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District. Here with me tonight is Matt Hammer from Landplex. As you can see from the plans we submitted, my client proposes to construct a 2-story commercial building in the rear of the above referenced property with sufficient parking, having 17 spaces. The property is located within the roadside commercial district in the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District. My clients purchased the property in 2014 and used the property to operate their family-owned business, Jerry Daly and Sons Plumbing and Heating, which has operated in Chelmsford since approximately 1972. Over the years, the business has grown and they need more space. They currently employ over 22 professionals. They operate Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, and they currently own 11 vans. The proposed construction will allow them additional space to park vehicles, office space for their staff, and a conference room to conduct training for their employees. Their proposed redevelopment will allow them to keep their current business in Chelmsford. The intent is to keep the existing parking area and the existing curb cut. The proposed development fits within the COI districts by the expansion of small businesses, continued growth and enhancement of commercial districts, and the development will enhance the municipal tax base. I will turn it over to Matt to go over the plans that were submitted with the filing.
Good evening, Matt Hammer, Landplex Engineering, 60.
Go to the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
60 Fletcher Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. So the parcel itself is 24,271 square feet. There's an existing structure directly adjacent to Tingsboro Road where they operate out of currently today. The paved area, which is shown in gray, is going to remain. So we're not going to be expanding that pavement area from what's there today. And the new building in the rear is 68 by 32. It's got a ground level garage area for loading the vehicles with supplies. And on the second floor, there's office space as well as a conference room. The project is in a floodplain, so we'll be going to conservation for the project. As well as the existing building. Once the new building in the back is constructed, the existing building will be removed and replaced in kind. I can put it to the board.
Evan, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Mike, questions?
You say that you will, after the new building is constructed, Will you be replacing the old building?
Yes.
It would be in the same footprint?
In the same footprint. In order to meet the performance standards for doing work in a floodplain, the foundation has to be a flow-through foundation.
Okay, and that obviously is so ancient,
Yeah,
it is, okay,
so.
understood.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The foundation would have to what?
Yeah, so when you do work in a floodplain, the foundation needs to be flow-through, meaning the water can go underneath the building if need be in the event that there is a flood.
Got it.
Yeah.
Of course, I will add, the only reason, if I understand the project, is using COID is for a side yard setback.
That's correct, Mr. Belansky.
Which side yard?
Yeah, so there's there's different setbacks as to whether you abut a residential neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
or not. So on one side, we have the town of Chelmsford's property, and then on the other side, we have the property that's occupied by the Buddhist monks.
Can you step up there and just show? You can talk in front of there. There's a microphone.
So that's this property here.
That's residential.
That's
Well, that's-
correct.
Residentially zoned, not necessarily.
Yeah,
used.
residentially
They
zoned.
may have
I
an
think usually someone does say,
residential
yeah.
component. The primary use there is a religious use, but it's in a residential zone.
It's like a temple.
So what's the difference between the setback for what with using COID and not?
So the commercial, if you could pan over to the zoning chart, Evan. So here, so the side yard and the allowable in the so, oops. So here's the commercial district setback line here. Okay. Which is 30 on the sides. If you abut so this building is within that setback. So if we utilize the COID setbacks, we would have a side setback here of 10 and a side setback here of 25. So then we would be proposing to have the building 26 feet from the side lot line, utilizing the COID setbacks.
Otherwise, the setback needs to be what? 30?
30, yes.
I'm sorry, can you just tell me what was on the left-hand side of the building?
Over here?
Yeah. No, the next property. to the left.
It's the town of Chelmsford
Oh,
property.
okay.
It's just open.
Just an open green space.
Butts Wellman Ave.
Gotcha.
And then I should also note, excuse me, we have a railroad track.
Right, right.
Yeah.
From a applicability point of view, I don't think the setbacks are highly relevant.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that will have to be determined later on, and I personally don't see an immediate problem, but I don't think that affects the applicability.
I don't know if I agree.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Joel?
No, I think it's applicable.
John?
I think it fits applicability. I think just, just looking at the architecture, I thought it fits in well with the area and I know you said you would replace the existing buildings. I think the building out front would almost remind you of a small residential home if you drove by it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anita?
No, and I appreciate the drawings, like at the stage, I really do appreciate the drawings and the view. We don't get that very often, and I really like that, and I like the idea, about where the trucks are parked behind the house or hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm fine from an applicability and
Okay. Deirdre?
this stage.
Yeah, I think it meets applicability, and I like the idea, and I'm happy that the building, the company is expanding in Chelmsford.
Mercy.
No, I actually like these drawings, like just looking at what they're trying to do with it, making it almost look like their houses versus like these just big businesses, so it just sort of makes the neighborhood, especially next to the, church and stuff, the temple, I think it would fit in perfectly there, so I think the applicabilities would work here.
I agree with the applicability.
Okay. I just had a couple questions. You said the front building is going to get replaced, or is that not being touched? Okay, that's the one that's going in its current footprint. Okay, I thought I heard the rear building, which was really confusing me, because there is no building in the back. The other comment I had is it looks like these architectural drawings are reversed from the plans. If you look at this one, the trash and the extension of the pavements going to the left of the building. If you look at the architectural, it's to the other side.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. The architectural plans were prepared before we solved the grading issues that we had to contend with the compensatory storage calculations for doing work in the floodplain. So you're right.
Okay.
This has changed from the architectural.
So that side of the, will be on the other side?
So we're gonna have a fenced-in dumpster enclosure.
Okay.
The site plan is the plan they're going with, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the
revised
parking will
architecturals.
still be behind that
Correct.
building, but the dumpster area will be to the right of the building instead of the left.
Left, okay.
There's still parking there on the right.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of parking.
Yeah, there is. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The building in the back will have also a flow-through foundation?
Yes, it will. Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Is this gonna does this come back to us for any site plan review? Okay.
Yeah, this is gonna trigger full site plan review. The COA setback special permit.
Yep.
A special permit with the zoning board for the floodplain and Concom.
Okay. All right. I will take a motion.
I move that we make a determination of COA applicability for 91 Kingsborough Road.
I'll second.
Motion by Mike, second by Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you
Thank you.
for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
My God,
No
it's
new
only-
public hearings. We've
Are we supposed to
continued
say
those
something
public
about without reference to zoning?
Huh?
Or without, isn't there supposed to be a little bit on the end of the applicability?
No, it's all too
No,
late now.
no, not on COA. That's,
Okay.
that's
Okay,
for,
good.
It's a little too late.
I know, I
That's
just thought of
fine.
it.
Just wanted
I
on
two
didn't
of them,
think of
so-
it then.
That's for A&Rs.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay, Community Development Director report.
What's coming up?
So just 5 items. First one is at the, I sent an email to you back prior to the September 8th Select Board meeting. At that meeting, they had the presentation of the MWRA connection feasibility analysis. I imagine that report will be incorporated into the Managed Growth Task Force consolidation of existing reports. It identified 5 options. Each option had a projected range of new wastewater flows capacity added, as well as a 10-year estimated cost. So some pretty big numbers as far as cost. Not exactly sure where the select board left at, other than presentation. But like I said, I imagine that will be picked up as an input into the managed growth strategy. Second item is permit fees. This is the second year that the select board has requested, and I gave you a printout of the a very high level assessment of permit fees comparing Chelmsford to neighboring communities. So obviously the planning board is.
We don't think we got.
You don't have it.
Oh, you don't have that?
No.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I made copies. Third item, just some recent inquiries, 21 Alpha Road, 7 Stewart, 93 Brick Hill, and 150 Stedman Street. for a variety of potential projects. Most of them fit within kind of the common themes that we're aware of.
What's 93?
93 is where the board approved I think it was a 50,000 square foot warehouse.
Yeah, it never happened.
That did not move forward.
It's being sold.
Wait, 93 what?
Brick
Hill.
next to UPS.
Oh.
What happens when they sell like that?
There's a lot of time on that one.
Yes, we did. Yep. So
They have indefinite
your approvals have a
value.
permit validity provision. They can ask for an extension prior to expiration, otherwise the permit lapse and they would have to come back to rebuild that project or a new project.
So what are they thinking about? Are they
So that
thinking-
inquiry was related to a hotel. It seemed optimistic with the initial inquiry, and just haven't heard back.
Hotel.
So they do
Interesting.
expire after.
Considering that we just, like,
They
we're
do.
changing
They
over
do.
all our
2
hotels in
years.
Chelmsford.
I'm sorry?
No, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it was caught me off guard. I had known at one time the town was actively pursuing a hotel in 129. The market seemed interested but couldn't find a site. Then obviously during COVID, the demand seemed to have gone away. Seems like hotels are being built again. So that was a good inquiry. And I followed up, but for whatever reason, it doesn't appear as though it's moving forward. Third item is, I think I sent this out on Monday, October 6th. The Center Village Master Plan Committee, working with Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, is hosting a Chelmsford Street visioning workshop at the library from 6 to 7:30, and this is stop at any time. So it's not going to be a continuous hour-and-a-half program. The visioning process is looking at complete streets, trees, pedestrian amenities, bicycle amenities, curb cut management, so things within the public realm. It also has an associated land use and zoning component with that. All property owners have received direct notification. I hand-delivered this flyer to the businesses last week. I've sent it out to Tree Committee, Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, Energy and Sustainability Committee. It's been posted on Facebook. So hopefully we have a decent turnout on that.
What's the output of that expected to be?
The outputs are going to be primarily some a graphic concept plan. If you're familiar with the Vinyl Square process, this is following a very similar process whereby the committee identified a project. We worked with NIMCOG, created some concept plans, project narrative, feasibility study, some recommendations. And then with Vinyl Square, that is actually advancing to 25% design, which is a significant investment on the town's part. And then ultimately, it'd be a capital project.
Would there need to be any connection into zoning for that work, or any changes required or anything like that?
Not necessarily, although I think there are some synergies. Some of the initial considerations related to curb cut management quickly get into private property impacts related to curb cuts and parking configurations. So some of the concepts have talked about placing parallel parking within the right-of-way, doing curb cut management, some landscaping to clean it up, beautify it. Obviously, if that has direct impacts to private property, primarily related to loss of parking, existing zoning, such as the COID, may provide market compensation. In addition, this study is looking specifically at alternative land use and zoning arrangements for Chelmsford Street. So there's, there is a planning component there. Whether the two, are directly related or the transportation improvements could be advanced without significant zoning changes remains to be seen.
It'd be good to get periodic updates and presentations on how things are going and how we might be able to help.
Sure, absolutely. Marcy may have
Marcy.
taken some of Marcy's thunder
Yep,
on,
you know.
on the flyer. Then final item is October 8th. I mentioned earlier 33 Glen Ave, informal meeting. This is not something that I've typically offered, but it seems like the board is open and amenable and interested in having those informal meetings. This would not necessarily be coming to you as COID applicability at this point. But that's for 33 Glen Ave. And then, as we discussed earlier, the Chelmsford Water District 50 Doak Road project. That public hearing will be opening on October 8th. That's all
What's
I have.
33 Glen Ave? I'm looking at it.
33 Glen Ave is
What's there
the
now?
first building on the right after the after Katrina. It's a
Is that what
first
previously
generation
North Star?
industrial warehouse,
Oh, okay.
which I think has been there a long time.
Are there any updates on the Hildreth appeal?
Nothing,
Okay.
nothing. I don't even think it's been scheduled.
Oh, we had Mr. House.
I know.
I have a question for Evan. What are the criteria for determining SAOT applicability?
So,
Because it doesn't look like there is specific criteria.
yeah, there's a brief section in the bylaw, section
111?
Yeah.
Section 119B,
119.
finding of applicability, B1.
Okay.
It's in there.
So
I
it's-
remember.
It's very high level. And a number of years ago, there was a project where the majority of the board did not like the project and wanted to provide direct voting in accordance with not really supporting it. Council at the time issued a memo indicating that within the spirit and intent of the way COID is laid out and providing due process, that council did not recommend the board ever voting a negative determination because it doesn't lead to supporting due process, meaning all you're looking at is concept plans. So what was advised was kind of issuing positive applicability, but with itemized areas of concern or interest. That way, the board is clearly articulating and documenting and putting a potential applicant on notice that there are areas of concern or significant concern. So we've,
Okay.
I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying,
Yeah.
okay.
But I think that there might be a problem with that. If I remember a couple projects since I've been on the board that I was part of the project review when the applicability had already been decided, and I was looking at the project, I couldn't understand how that project was applicable. But if it's such high level and town council never recommended it not be applicable.
Council at the time did not advise ever voting a negative applicability. In doing so would mean that you would prevent the applicant from making a full submission. triggering the public hearing and a butter notification.
Is there any way to do it that you don't give approval and then you require the site plan?
No, but then.
I think you'd essentially be
how does that
issuing like a
prevent-
conditional applicability is probably
Right,
the
how
best
does
way
that
to look at it.
prevent the applicant from submitting a a full plan and coming in front of the board for?
Yep.
Well, they could do it with the
prevents-
underlying zoning.
Yes, correct. But you would be preventing them from using COI.
But then
But
why
then
do we
why
have
have applicability in the
at
first
all?
place?
So I don't disagree with you. I think the way it played out was that it was basically a conditional applicability, conditional in the sense that the majority of the board articulated areas of concern.
So what happens with that? If you approve it and there's areas of concern, what's the recourse to take it away?
We don't have to approve the
Well,
special
when-
permit.
yeah, even when the project is actually submitted, yeah,
To Chris's
denial.
point, it makes
Yeah.
it, because now, can we look at our criteria for applicability and maybe have council look at it and see if maybe we need to change the criteria for it that would allow us
We
to
can certainly
say
do that,
no?
and if applicability, if the board is more open to informal meetings, and wants to embrace that practice in lieu of applicability, I think it serves the same purpose. Back when COID was written, we were trying to codify a process whereby informal meetings would be a routine and regular and understood and accepted practice. It's 10 plus years later. I think boards, particularly this board, is more open and probably willing and interested in having informal meetings.
You
Right-
definitely see areas.
Right
of
now,
concern.
right now under COID, they're just, it's formally called applicability and.
But I mean, I don't think changing the criteria is gonna change the basic issue. It sounds like town council has, which is that we really shouldn't say no because we're denying them a
We
full
can ask
permission.
council to revisit.
Yeah.
I don't
Review and
understand
revisit.
why we even bother. then.
Because if we're going to essentially say yes, but conditionally, then actually the things we're looking at, it's a much broader perspective, because now we're looking at all kinds of things to say, well, I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about that. Whereas right now, at least the criteria we have, it's, proposed type, size, and location. And that,
So
like, use isn't even involved.
So I apologize. I thought board members knew or wanted to express any and all areas of interest or concern.
No, I agree. I do think
And
that's a good
what-
thing.
that is what provides the value to a potential applicant.
Yeah,
whether it's-
so what I'm wondering is, do we want that in a policy? I mean, right now, we have this sort of understood but unspecified way that we're gonna be handling these things. So I think we ought to have
So
it
let me
documented.
recirculate the memo. And we can review it, put it on the agenda for an item. And maybe that evolves into a policy, or maybe the board wants to have current council review and revisit it.
Yeah,
It was
but
prior council that made that
That was
recommendation.
Haverty.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know, and again, maybe because of the way our criteria is, that's why he recommended a certain way. Like if we had different criteria, then to me, it just seems silly that if you're telling me that I have to say yes, then why not even bother coming in?
Well, wait a minute.
I mean, I get that,
Wait a minute. You don't have to do what your council says.
no, I know,
You
but.
just listen to it.
I get that, but
But you
again,
don't
is it
necessarily
something,
do it.
is it the criteria so vague that it
we've
gets us
had-
into
Yeah.
trouble? Like, what was it specifically? I
We've
just
had
don't
past
remember.
applicabilities where individual board members have essentially voted negatively.
Right.
But the majority of the board voted in a positive manner.
We had that at Meeting House Road.
I don't recall the specifics,
I
but
can
yeah,
remember a couple.
there's been a couple.
Well, Beehive, Chris voted no.
Yeah, there's been a couple. And so I think what council was stressing was if the entirety of the board or majority of the board voted in a negative manner, in that case, you're not necessarily providing due process because you're not reviewing any of the data-driven facts that you would use to ultimately determine whether to approve or not approve, because the level of detail they're required to submit as part of applicability is conceptual in nature.
I think that depends on why you're voting no. If you're voting no because you don't like the project, I agree with that. But if you're voting no because you don't think it should be coming in under the overlay and it should be coming in under the underlying zoning for the setbacks and the things like that, then I think that's a different.
Yeah, I mean, that's a differentiation we have to make here, and the standard really is different.
Right,
For
because
applicability, and I've seen us go through a lot of applicability things where we start asking questions that are more appropriate for a site plan review.
But that's because we want to give them more information for that site plan.
Yeah, we want to give them feedback.
More
but we're not-
detailed discussion.
We're not setting up the.
But my response to what you just said, Chris, is that decision's already been made. So on the Tingsboro Road, the bylaw via the town meeting vote, a 20-foot setback is deemed reasonable with a special permit. Well, there's a by right and then there's a special permit. So if they come in with COID as a by right compliant setback, I mean, that standard is set.
Well, yeah,
right,
that
so
I
that's
understand.
but that's what I was like for. I think it was Tingsboro Road. What I was asking about the residential, right? Like, 'cause we're doing applicability, and if that was like a residential neighbor, and I was looking at the setbacks, then I was like, that's where I was thinking. Like, if it comes under COID,
even in
then
that case,
I'm stuck.
there's a by right setback, and if they meet it,
But if if we said yes to COID, then they got the relief on the setback.
Right.
they already have that relief.
Well, no, but
Because it's a by right.
if somebody were coming that would not have the relief unless they got SAOID, and we're looking at SAOD, and we're looking at SAOD, and we're saying, we're considering, is this applicable? That to me would be a valid thing to look at.
That's what,
right?
yeah,
Is
that's
if
how.
you think it's going to
Deciding
impact.
that it's applicable doesn't mean you're going to give them the setback.
No, because then under
No,
COID,
but you're saying
they've got the right.
You're basically
under-
saying this is not a zoning that I think works.
Then I can't say
It's-
no to them when
Right.
they
Yes,
come
you
in.
can say no to them.
And this has been.
Well, I know I do,
This
but
has
all the time,
been
no problem with it, but.
This has been the level of that some members have had, uncomfortableness that members in the public have had with COID, is that it, by its definition, it is trying to facilitate the concept plans that you see to make a project pencil out and conceptually work for the proponent. Could they build the building to comply at 30 and not have that extra 5 feet? Probably. But COID is designed to try to give a little bit to make projects work, to incentivize people to apply for something that they actually need for their project, as opposed to, work within the more restrictive underlying setbacks.
But there's a whole purpose behind that overlay that's been pretty well spelled out. And to me, if a proposed project doesn't meet any of
agreed.
those things,
Yes,
Agreed,
then it should
agreed
be
with you.
rejected.
it should be rejected.
Yeah.
But according to that practice, we wouldn't reject it.
No,
We would
Sounds
have.
like it should.
Let me send it back, and we'll put it on the agenda, and we'll
Get counsel on
have the
it
board,
and find
discuss it and ultimately get council to review and revise.
I just have one question just to ask on that. So if you approve COID, then they come in and you discover something like the setback isn't working. You then can ask them to change that, and that doesn't counter the COID, or because they got COID approval, that makes it harder to make them change it?
I don't think COID approval gives them anything
Well, it treats the
effectively
setback.
by
It's just
right.
It depends. There are some COID where there are no special permits.
Right.
But applicants do, when they come in with their SAOD application, point back to getting applicability and say, see, you thought this was a good idea.
Right.
So now, for you to think it's not a good idea is inconsistent with what you had said before. That's what they'll say.
Right.
That's what they have said, and that's what they will say.
Which is why I had thought, and again, I may have been mistaken, that board members were articulating any areas of interest or concern.
Yeah.
And I think we have. It's still not as clean as I think.
And I
some
don't think
of
it's
us would
like,
like it.
again, you know, maybe certain members on the board, like we're, like if we change out, right?
Mhm.
That's something that is not, to your point, Joel, like policy or, like, it needs to be clearly spelled out and
Yeah,
easy
but
for people to
If it's
understand.
a conceptual plan, it's never gonna be clearly spelled out. I mean, it's
But then
it's a
the
concept.
No, that's not true though.
Change it.
Certain
Right, they
things
say
you know,
no.
like for
Yeah.
Beehive's a perfect good example. That was a case where we were concerned about the mixed use, the use of a residential with potential children with contractor yard. So that's a case where you're saying, this is not a good use. This is not a good, I don't think SAYOT applies here because what you would be doing with SAYOT is something that doesn't fit with what you're trying with zoning. So I don't need to know the details of stormwater. I don't need to know setbacks. I just from that alone, I can say, I don't think that's applicable. So that would be the kind of thing that, yeah, I think it's important, you know, to have some sense of what it is that we're going to be able to say no on, you know, or whether we can say no, or whether we're even not going to bother to say no, but we're going to say like Evan was suggesting, is we're going to give you a lot of hints that if you show up
It's
here
gonna be
for a
hard.
permit, there's going to be certain things we're not going to like, you know.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
exactly what it is.
Let's move on.
Thank you.
All right.
Make a motion
Anything
to-
else? Not yet. Liaison updates.
Okay, I have one thing, just for liaison update, because I haven't talked about it in a while. I think we have a meeting next week, but I know that the VSAP committee is really looking for a North Chelmsford business rep. They've had a vacancy for a couple weeks, so that is affecting them.
I'm sorry, who's looking for?
Vinyl Square. It's VSAP, VSSAP.
Final Square Improvement Plan.
We've never heard it said like that.
I'm adding it. It's a lot of words.
Oh, I like your
Looking
efficiency.
for
I
what?
like that. That's good.
What are they looking
Does
for?
farming there make you a local business?
Are you selling things? Yes, you can be
I'm not
on there.
selling them there, but I'm
Well,
selling them.
Well, you do have
You have a
farmland.
business?
What are they
It's a
looking
business?
for?
They need a
Yeah,
representative. So the representative that they had from Vinyl Square left,
Business owner.
and they currently don't have one, and they're limited on people right now within this committee. It's getting smaller, so they need another person.
Aren't
Well,
there
we can
quite a
talk-
few
we can talk
businesses
later.
in
That
that
might
area?
be a possibility if they can't find a storefront business owner that wants to do it.
Okay. Marcy.
So yeah, Evan just gave up most of it. So last Center Village meeting, we met with NIMCOG to talk about the meeting that we're going to have at the library on the 5th or the 6th, I can't remember. 5th, okay. And like what businesses to reach out to, and to include actually both the Chelmsford Youth Baseball teams, the Chelmsford Girls Softball League, because they have the fields that are on Chelmsford Street, and including even reaching out a little bit onto Bill Ricker Road here for the church, because they're using the area all the time, and to sort of get everything set up for the presentation. And also Nate Montero has now joined the Center Village team to take over the vacant spot. So
Who's he?
Nate Montero.
Hildreth.
Hildreth Street.
Hildreth Street.
Oh.
Hildreth Street's taken over.
Yes, we're starting to like take over the board.
Did you say that you sent this to us? Because I didn't see it.
I will send it to you.
You sent it to the
Okay.
Center Village Committee, because I have it,
And are
but yes.
you gonna send us the other thing too that you thought you sent us? Okay.
I just have glasses.
I just have, I don't think we talked about this before, it's just one sentence. We picked a consultant for the low impact development. Did I mention that before? I don't think so.
Nope.
So we picked
Yeah.
of the three, Kleinfelter.
Yep.
And so now we have, we're gonna have a launch at some point. I think in October is the timeline, but I don't think the date's been set yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So.
Okay. Anita, any updates?
Nope.
John?
So last week I attended a Northern Middlesex Council of Governments meeting, and one announcement is that when NIMCOG is having their annual meeting right here in one of the best towns of their membership. It'll be at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts on October 15th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. And the keynote speaker will be Ed Augustus, Secretary of the Massachusetts Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So that should be a good event.
All right. Joel?
Did that potential, for 191, we had somebody proposing a bike path thing, and was that, he mentioned NIMCOG was involved in that. Has that come up at all, the bike path thing?
Not at the meetings I've
Okay.
been at.
Okay. I don't have any liaison report.
No, nothing for Board of Health?
They didn't meet. They only meet once a month, and
That's right.
I gave the report last time.
Okay.
Yep, Master plan implementation did meet. We meet quarterly. It's always an interesting meeting. You find out what everybody's really doing in town. This was a good one. I think we fared fairly well as one of the committees being investigated. Actually, Evan presented most of that. No particular surprises. Progress is being made against the master plan.
Okay. That is a committee of the planning board.
Yeah.
And they talked about doing an annual presentation. to
That'd be
the,
great.
To the
Yeah.
planning board.
Yes, sir.
Like, when would that be?
Maybe December, maybe when it quiets down a little bit.
We have to talk about December meetings too, because I think one of them falls on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Yeah.
Perfect.
I won't be there. Do you think we could get the telecommunications people to film that presentation by Augusta, so that it could be available on Chelmsford, like?
Yeah, it'd probably be
programming?
up to, I could talk to Jenny Raitt and see, get her, you know,
That would be a good thing.
I would love to be able to watch that, and I won't be available that day. Nor will I be here on the 8th.
I've got, for Concom, just a couple things. 242 Billerica Road ended up being continued to October 14th. They were no-show this week, which was interesting. Stedman was continued to October 28th, and they have agreed to the Weston and Sampson peer review for stormwater. We do have meeting minutes to approve.
I have read them, so I will move if you need it.
Joel, I think you were absent that day. Couple minor typos, Evan, on that.
Sorry.
I think we had already, did I send those to?
You did.
Okay. Just a missing an E in managed, in the managed growth section. So I will take a motion.
I will move that we approve the meeting minutes of July 9th, 2025.
As changed, modified.
Motion by Mike, second by Deirdre. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm abstaining.
Joel abstains. Everyone else is an aye. All right, meeting dates October 8th and 22nd coming up. I will be also putting together a list of things that we might want to start looking into next for prioritization for zoning changes and things like that, now that we have, hopefully we'll have some time after these public hearings start wrapping up. So I'll be getting that to everyone soon. Thank you, everyone.
Make a motion to
Oh,
adjourn?
actually, I need a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion by Mike, second by Deirdre, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.